Awesome.
I am excited to have you here. Super inspired by you every time I see you.
Thank you.
And I just recently discovered that you have this mentorship program that I thought was just super dope, and I just wanted to highlight it and talk about it. Not a lot of people know. How about this? I've been following you for years, and I had no idea the kind of work that you've been doing with these young ladies. So, welcome to Thinking Kingdom Media. I am glad to have you here. Um, it's been a while since I think the last time we got together was at the coffee bar event.
Yeah.
But we're here because we want to talk about what you're doing and the work that you're doing. So tell me about Crown Her, what formerly known as
Roses.
Roses. Tell me
Yes.
about this because I'd like it.
Okay, so pretty much it started honestly back in 2007.
Yeah.
Started with a girls group. I was working with a group of girls in Charlotte at Coolwood Middle School in Charlotte, North Carolina. It started off as a girls group with mostly sixth graders. We met on Fridays, had talks, had discussions, and then I had to move away. And when I moved away to Columbia back home with my son, I wanted to start something but didn't know how. And then I ended up mentoring two girls, working with them after school, helping them with their homework. We would go out, eat, whatever. And then it transitioned from there to one of my counselors came to me and said, Ryan, we want to start a mentoring group for at-risk girls. Can we start it? Can you work with it? And I was like, okay, cool. So we started with that at Blythewood Middle School, and then that's what we called it Roses. It stands for Respecting Ourselves and Each Other Through Sisterhood. And before I even started the club at Coolwood, I just felt the need to work with girls. I don't know. I don't actually know why. I just always had a passion to work with girls, give them more than what they got at home. Because at the end of the day, for some reason, during middle school stages, kids are very impressionable. And even if they may be getting good teaching at home, you know, being impressed by their peers can cause them to go in different ways. And I was that child. Both parents were at home, but I still made some bad decisions. So just having that extra set of hands to help guide them in the right direction, that was the whole premise. So there was a group of young ladies who I taught who parents agreed for me to pick them up. We would hang out in my apartment, go shopping, talk. They would confide. They would call me. I would call them. That's where it initially started. Fast forward to Blythewood, we worked with these girls. We went on college tours. We brought in guest speakers. We talked about careers. We talked about relationships. We had workshops with them. And then when Muller Road opened up, we had to transition where we had to move to, basically you had to transition out as far as the teacher was concerned. So I ended up at Longleaf Middle School. Started it there and it has been going ever since. We have ranged from having maybe 10 girls to almost 40 girls in 1 year. This year, I think I have about 30, but I have girls, they initially start in 7th grade as a Rose. Depending on the year, like last year was my first year in a long time having Rose Buds, which are 6th graders. And pretty much I would bring in guest speakers. I would talk to them. Last year was mostly on a Google Meet when I would speak to them. And basically just trying to realize, number one, they're a leader now. You're not a leader tomorrow, you're a leader now. You can lead now, you can do great things now. I talk about them loving themselves. We've had guest speakers come in, and when I talk about the names of guest speakers, now that I think about it, when Gabby Bowes was just starting out, for those of you not familiar with Gabby Bowes, who's like multi-figure, making buku money off of hair bows. When she first started out, I brought her and her mom in. Kiki from Kiki Chicken and Waffles, I had them come in for a business forum and talk to the girls about being an entrepreneur, having multiple streams of income. I'll admit in the last year or so, we kind of gotten away from that because I just wanted, because of the pandemic threw us off, I felt like we didn't have enough time together. So I just poured into them for the last year on a Google Meet. So this year, the girls who were Rose Buds are now Roses because they're 7th graders. And I have 7th and 8th graders now. It's probably about 20 of them who we meet once a month on Fridays. we've been getting to know each other. We've been using this one series called The Girls Room, I want to say it's called, Lena Waithe. And I feel like I'm saying her name wrong. She and Dove came together and made a project, and we've been using their videos to talk about, being careful what you eat, being careful how much sleep you're giving your body, because you need the fuel, loving yourself, appreciating yourself, not trying to be like anyone else. So the whole concept of it, eventually we are not officially a nonprofit. We have the LLC, but we want to transition where we have the fundraising part and the 403(b). I always say that wrong, but y'all get what I'm saying. Yeah.
I get it.
But pretty much is one of those things where people who know me, this is something that's been in my heart, my desire. There's a group in Atlanta called Cool Girls. And they started with 7 girls. I forgot what year they started, but they're now to the point, and it may be more now, but they now serve almost 500 girls. And it's mainly I want to say it was elementary school girls. They have shopping trips with the girls where people donate items and the girls can shop for them based on incentives. I remember one year they had Jasmine Guy come in during a banquet to help raise money. They've had Verizon, Coke, all these big people pour into their company, and it's pretty much an outreach, and that's what I want eventually get Crown Her to be in the Columbia area. I definitely want to go in rural parts, like I think about my mom's hometown, Edisto Island, Hollywood. I would love for us to be in places like that. Like I want it to be a statewide thing. First, we want to start with Columbia. Right now, we're technically just Richland 2 at our school, Longleaf, and I actually have high school girls. Matter of fact, the seniors we have this year, they started off at Rosebuds in 6th grade, and they're graduating this year. So we still keep in contact via email right now, because right now a lot of them are working, a lot of them are ROTC or sports, so it's hard for us to get together on Saturdays like we used to.
Right.
Nevertheless, there's still that contact there. I have a group of girls. They were one of my first full classes last year, graduated. The beauty of them being connected from going to USC, College of Charleston, University of Alabama, all of them debt free. And that's something I was speaking to them since 7th grade. Y'all have the grades, let's keep them going. They have to send me their grades. I have to look at them, we talk about it. Okay, what do we need to do to make this better? And just staying on point when it comes to behavior. It's just, I'm another outlet for their parents to pour into them, to make sure they know they are beautiful, to know that you don't have to follow the crowd, to know that you can be your own individual self, and at the same time, not trying to blend in, you're trying to stand out. So.
Yeah, I think the pain point that you hear, or the fulfillment piece of it, is just that extra set of eyes, the extra set of hands in a kid's life, especially a young lady's life. And so, my question for you would be, because I can kind of hear a war cry, right? Like, ladies, like, I need to be here for you. I need to show up for you. Where does that come from? Because even like in the country areas, Edisto, here it's a little bit different. My son's in 7th grade, and I know what my son, he's off the chain in terms of what's going on from a relational standpoint, and where his mindset is. It's just like hot puberty, all of that stuff that you were saying. So like, what do you think is the war cry? Like, is it, or the motivation? Because I know you said it's just one thing. One thing is just the eyes, and the extra set of eyes, and the extra parent. But then, is there a place where you're putting yourself in that 7th grade set of shoes again?
Oh yeah.
And okay, and you're
like I'm not saying I had the worst life,
right?
But I made some decisions. When I look back on it, was like, girl, if you really loved yourself and you really appreciated who you were as a person, you wouldn't have did some of the things that you did.
Right.
And I don't want, and I feel like, because I realize I love my mom. My mom is awesome. My dad is, God bless his soul, was awesome too. But some of us go through this weird stage where parents all of a sudden become stupid and we know better. And as a result, we end up making some stupid decisions because we think they're trying to impede on our life. and trying to stop us being, I can't live. And the reality is they have lived. So they know where you've been. So as a result, like, I just remember just going through that period where my daddy could tell me nothing. And the reality is he was a man, so he understood what boys were thinking. And I just thought, you don't want me to live. And I noticed that when I talk to the girls, and it never fails, the girls are like, my mama said the same thing, Miss Jenkins. I said, well, maybe you'll listen this time. Maybe you'll hear me. And it's something, and honestly, I was thinking about this the other day, how the reality is the connection I have with younger people that not everybody has. Like my kids feel like they can really talk to me about things that maybe they can't talk to their parents about, or it's confirmation of what their parents have already been talking to them about.
Right.
So it's just, I just don't want them. It's like my bishop says all the time, you shouldn't have to experience it to learn the lesson. And that some of these girls just need to hear somebody else's experience and be like, okay, nah, I'm good. That's okay.
Yeah, that weird parent stage. And I'm there, right? And I'm so like, because, like I said, this is why you're here, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not only something that we need for girls, but we need it for boys too. Even in, because you think that sports organizations and coaches would be. Oh, it's not enough. It's really not enough. And I'm in a space where I have to make my son sit down with me and my wife for at least 1 hour, because he's good with just coming home from basketball practice, seeing us for 10 minutes, and being like, "Yep, I'm good. Yep, got the food. All right, go." You
have to be intentional.
Gotta be intentional, because he'll just take whatever ideas he has and imprint them. And so now I can see the intention is conflicting him. Outwardly you can see it, like it's like my dad wouldn't really, cause I'm saying things to him like, whoever it is that you're gonna be that 100% of the time, right? So let your private life be your public life. Like, I don't want to see a version of you on your phone that you're not when you're with me. And I think that what you're doing is creating a tool that's a little bit more effective than us being conflicted parents, right? And weird stage parents. Like, this is the conduit, and it's more. Do you think that that's what the program is? It's like a tool that parents can use to. That's not sports. It's just an alternative option to get the message across that.
I never even thought of it that way. When I've had orientations with my young ladies and with my parents, I've always told them, I'm just reinforcing what you're teaching at home.
Right.
And pretty much is I want your girls to be successful. One thing that we used to do with Roses is we used to go what they call, and I hate using that term now, at risk. I said it at the beginning. We said at risk girls. It was basically the girls who got in trouble, the girls who weren't doing well with grades. And that's one thing I forgot to mention is that eventually when I got the long leaf and I was running this by myself, I realized all girls need mentoring. It's not just the girls who are struggling with work, but it's also the girl that does her work, but she may be struggling with self-esteem. It may be also the girl who she has good grades, she has good self-esteem, but she needs to be a light to these girls who don't see a way. So basically, I mix, like the mixture of girls I have right now is I have some girls who they're a little bit rough on the edges, but I also have some girls who are very tender and they're sociable, so they pull from each other. One thing that we definitely want to make sure that we do is that every girl needs to be poured into. It's not just a particular group of girls.
Right. Do you find it difficult that you have to adapt to how you pour in to particular girls?
Oh yeah, because every girl is different. Like even this year, I had to shift some things. And basically, because this is basically almost like a new set of girls in a way, because even though the Rosebuds who were with me last year, we were online virtually.
Right.
So them growing as seventh graders, and one thing I've learned from being in middle school almost 18 years now, that sixth grade, seventh grade transition is different. So the same girl that was bubbly and outgoing as a sixth grader, all of a sudden is a little bit closed in as a seventh grader.
Yeah.
I've noticed that. So I've had to shift. So I honestly have not had any guest speakers come in this year because I just want to pour into them and get to know me and me get to know them. And then starting in the spring, we'll probably start bringing guest speakers. But it's just one of those things where this year, because I'm in grad school, because I have a program I work with at my school, and then of course Roses, and then other things I've going on, I did not do Rosebuds, but this was the highest number of parents who emailed me and was like, so we heard about this Roses, so what about for sixth grade? And I was like, not this year. It's just, it was just too much to work with them. And then I have my high school girls too, who I have to keep up with them. It's too much. And that's the only downfall that I pray that God helps me with. I just need help.
That's what I was gonna say, Ryan. What do you need, right? Because I know manpower is one thing, funding is another thing.
But having the volunteers, and I have a group of girls who I have two in particular. One helps me with the high school girls. One helps me with the middle school girls. They come and they're there. And I actually had staff who has reached out and said, I'll reach with a girl here and there. Number one is learning to delegate that help and to make sure they are able to meet with those girls. But just with the planning, checking their grades, all that's needed. So, every now and again, I'll have, like one year I remember having almost 10 mentors. And then sometimes it's just me. So in a way, this year I don't mind because like right now I have less girls, I think this year than I've ever had before, which is not bad for me because it's just me with them.
Right.
But like planning the meetings and whatnot, and just having consistent help. You have certain people. There's a group out in Fairfield County. If you get a chance to interview her, her name is Javonda Brown. They call themselves the Elite Ladies of Fairfield, and she works the mentoring group. I want to say is middle school through high school.
Yeah.
She works with the boys and the girls, and the staff she has, the things she's able to do with them is awesome sauce. But what's awesome about her program is funded by the district.
Right.
It's almost funded by the district. They have to do their fundraising here and there, but it's sponsored through the district. Unlike with me, with a district within Richland too. They want us to have mentoring activities and mentoring groups, but at the same time, we have to provide our own funding, programming, or whatever. So that's why I want to be a nonprofit, because it loosens us up to do more when it comes to the funding part.
Right. That's what I was going to ask you. What does the plight look like on the road to funding? Is it a political thing you got to do? Is it just got to have the right relationships with the right people kind of thing?
It's everything. It's everything. Like we've had years where we've done Krispy Kreme. We've done Applebee's used to do pancakes. We've done anything you can think of in some. We have done it because when we were fully active before the pandemic, I would take my girls on college tours. We've been to Atlanta. We've been to art museums. We've been to plays. But all that requires money. I remember we put together a fashion show where my girls were trained by a model. And that money was used for us to go on a trip. I think we went to Atlanta that year using that money for that trip. Yeah. So it's not even political. It's just when it comes to raising money and you're part of a school organization and everybody else is, you pulling from multiple pots. But one thing I have, and it is getting all girls on board, because the reality is if I put out there a price and say, okay, the trip is $50. If you raise this money, you don't have to pay for the trip. Well, I have girls, thankfully, that literally be like, I'm not raising the money. My mom was going to pay for it. So that's how it works out. So, but at the same time, I would like it to be, and some people say I spoil my girls, and I do. I wanted to get to a place where financially they don't have to spend anything for anything.
Right. You said that you've been telling them things since 7th grade. So you have been teaching for 18 years. And that's, and first of all, I just want to say that's like not like a light thing. Like you say that, like you're very like, not a lot about the fact that you've been teaching for almost 2 decades, and you're in grad school. but you've had girls that you've been speaking to and keeping up with since 7th grade, which is another thing that's just adding so much more value because we like to service people, but we don't find the time to do life with people, which is, and I'm thinking, and I don't know if this is the ultimate goal, but I'm thinking this is like what the real discipleship looks like, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so interesting. So is that really what the goal is? Like to keep in touch with every single Rose or crown her student into adulthood? I try. Right, because I'm like, how can you do that?
It's honestly like it amazes me now. Facebook and Instagram make it very possible.
Okay.
And a matter of fact, it was ironic when I left Charlotte to move down here. I started a student Facebook page, and then that was that was when MySpace and Facebook were really popular, and that was my way of keeping up with those kids. Because I still have kids who my first year teaching, we're still in contact. They're like in their 30s. So we're still like, wow. Oh, hey, Miss Jenkins, how are you? Oh, yeah, I had a baby. Oh, I got married. That's the dynamic.
And you be like,
yeah. So like, it blows my mind every single time. Just like one of my favorite students, he was one of the coaches. He's one of the coaches for South Carolina State. So when I immediately saw him on the TV, I recorded it and I reposted it. Like I'm all in. That's just me and who I am, and I believe in those connections. So it was one of my first group of Roses at Longleaf instant messaged me. I posted something about roses, and she said, Ms. Jenkins, you don't understand how much I needed this group and how much this group helped me. And you have some girls, when they go to high school, they completely forget about me, but it never fails when they need a job reference or they want a reference to a scholarship. Oh, they're hitting me up like, Ms. Jenkins. Or they'll, I got a random text one day from Rose. She was in her early 20s about how to this day, even though she was only in the group for like a year, to this day, there's still things she remembers that I taught and that the lessons that we had in the workshops. So it's one of those things where I don't believe in, okay, you're with me for these 2 years. As a matter of fact, I'm the only organization I think that does that in the district where you come in for the 2 years, but if you want to come back while you're in high school, you can. Yeah. And I'll admit, the last two groups, this past senior group that's now in college, and this group right here, they're the first two groups I would say that they went all the way through. They would miss meetings here and there because, again, they're in sports, from ROTC to sports to the working, and I work with them in their schedule, but I still have all their numbers on my phone. Every now and again, I'll send a text. How's everything going? What's going on with you? So I don't think I intentionally started it that way, but I didn't feel right that we spent all this time together in middle school and then you just going off. No, if you want to come back, you can come back. And some of them chose to come back, which is awesome sauce.
Yeah. So. I've spent a lot of time. Most of the time that I've ever engaged you has been just while you've been performing your art, and you're very vocal about Black people. You're very vocal about, civil rights. You're very vocal, just in general. You're very transparent when when you're doing your art. What do you think is? Because we were talking about creating content for you at some point. And I assumed some things about your logo that I thought, right? And you let me know, you made it very clear. You was like, well, that's not the only thing that my brand is about, right? So if someone was to approach you and ask, well, Rian, what is your brand about? What is Crown Her about, really?
So,
how would you describe that?
You have Crown Her is a mentoring, and you have Crown by Nichelle, which kind of is under it in a sense. Yeah. But Crown by Nichelle is my middle name Nichelle means victory. So, and then my first name Rian actually means royalty. So it's like Crown Her is basically, I just envision basically showing these young ladies your royalty. Like, it amazes me, especially as Black women, how we are not esteemed to the level we should be esteemed for so long, and how we've taken on certain personas that, I know some people disagree with me, but it's like it objectifies women, and it's been turned okay and empowering. Like, I never could get down with, I remember in 7th grade thinking it was cool to be called a B, because that was the term. I want a gangsta B. I don't remember who did that rap song. But then if I got older, I was like, I'm calling myself a female dog. Like, nah, I can't do that. So it's just showing these girls, number one, your royalty. Yeah. And it doesn't matter the mistakes you've made. You're still royalty. And that's something that needs to be conveyed in our society. Even now with cancel culture, you make a mistake and you're written off for life. No, you can come back from that. And it's just, crown her. It's pretty much, I'm crowning you. I'm reminding you of who you are, who you always been destined to be, who you can be, who you can change things around, how you can impact other people. And that's how even when it comes to my poetry, and that's why I decided to call the company Crowned by Nichelle, is because I constantly want to remind people of who you are and what you can be and what you can overcome. Because I remember that's something I struggled with for years. Is one of my go-to poems is called Worthy, and just how people just think, because I made a mistake, I can't do what is in me to do. That should be dormant because of my mistakes, and that shouldn't be.
Come on, that is rich. That is very rich. And that just brought me to another thought, which is the work that you're doing is preliminary in ways that you're intercepting woes and tragedies, right? And mentally, spiritually, even physically in some ways with the work that you're doing and the passion that you have. But do you ever think about the adult women that still need this work, right? Like, do you ever think that it's really a lot of grown adult women and men that still need programs like this? How do you feel when you think about that void not being filled through Crown Her? Or is that, maybe I'm assuming that it's just right? I could be just assuming that.
No, it's not. I think how I reach out to men and women is through my poetry, through my spoken word. Because my dominant audience is adults where I speak. Right. And I speak in venues where you wouldn't expect to hear what I'm about to say.
That was another part of what I really enjoyed about you, is because, a lot of people probably don't know that you're a citizen of the kingdom, and and you're part of a ministry, and and that you're sit up under leadership, in the kingdom. What do you think keeps you? Because I've seen that. It's not like a one time I saw you at a spot where, now Rian knows she's not supposed to be up here, right? What do you think keeps you going to those holes in the bars and the walls?
Because, no one else is going to, and not saying no one else is going to go.
Nah, Joe, you got to say it, right? You gotta say it.
Okay, let me put it this way. If I'm invited, if someone is willing to say, I want you to come and speak here. And I've been to some places.
You've been to some places.
I've been to some places. And I don't even know if it's the whole Jesus mentality, how he went to different places where people normally were not accepted or people weren't trying to go. I don't know if that's what I'm taking on, but I just know, I don't know. When God gave me this gift to write, it was just like, this is my gift to you. And even though in my private time I may write about other stuff, but when it's like I've been charged, when you're on that mic, you're glorifying me. You're talking about me. You're trying to help people get out of their situations. Not saying I can't talk about love, and I do every now and again talk about love and want to be loved. But as far as like there's a new, and I wouldn't say a new movement, erotica poetry. That's thing that
right that they do.
And I can't. I can't. Everything in me is like, I can't do that. That's not that opposes. That goes against. I can't contradict my message.
Now, but here's the right, because we can still be and not do that. And here's the thing that I really love about you is that Not only do you go to the hole in the wall and you emote and you share your gift, you love those people, you support them. I've seen you love on them, right? You know, you don't just go there and preach, right? And then, right, you literally are going in and manifesting.
I didn't even
the
realize
culture
that
of the
was being
kingdom.
witnessed, but
Oh,
yeah, that's
man.
good to hear.
Listen,
That's good to hear.
I just want to encourage you, right? That's why you're here. Okay, that's why you're here. I'm here to encourage you and let you know that I appreciate you and value all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you again, Ryan. Salute to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kingdom.